class. So today we're going to be doing some more cultural projects. We're going to be doing one on Ireland today. So let me show you where Ireland is on our map here. I wasn't able to print it out, sorry, but we're just going to go with the screen. Hopefully we can see. Ireland is going to be right about here. This little red dot, it's an island off the coast of England. And Ireland is actually made up of two separate countries on the same island. There's the Republic of Ireland, and then there's Northern Ireland. This is the whole island of Ireland off the coast of Scotland and England. So we can see that right there. That's what we're going to be talking about today, okay? Perfect. So, Ireland, there are lots of sheep in Ireland. Sheep are a big part of Ireland. In fact, a couple years ago, there were more sheep than people in Ireland. So, can you guess what we're going to be making today? That's right, we're going to be making our very own Irish sheep. It's going to look a little something like this. We're going to be able to name them, and we're actually going to learn what they used sheep for in Ireland. Can anybody guess what maybe they use sheep for in Ireland? They use it for wool. So all this fluffy stuff on the sheep, they cut it off and then they make wool out of it, and then they can make clothes out of that. They also use sheep for meat, but we're gonna really be talking about the wool today, okay? All right, and they make sweaters, and the sweaters are really cool because the special oil inside the sheep makes them waterproof. They're really famous for having their sweaters in Ireland with all the sheep that they have there. And most of the knitting was done by the women back in when they first started knitting the sweaters. It was done by the women for their families, and they used a lot of the sheep. So sheep are very important back in Ireland then, and they're still important now. So we're actually going to be listening to a book. We have a video of a book, and we're going to be listening to that about how the Irish get the wool and make clothing from the sheep's wool. And so this is called A Symphony for the Sheep by C.M. Milne, and it's actually kind of like a poem. So you're going to hear things rhyming, and it's going to go through all the process that it takes to make clothes from the sheep. And no sheep are hurt, they just take off their fuzz. So all the sheep still live, so you don't got to worry about that. All right, so let's go ahead and get started.
This story is going to introduce most of us to a brand new concept, and maybe something we hadn't even thought about before. But this is where our wool comes from. So let's listen to Symphony for the Sheep. In the spring, when ewes are lambing, and the rams do watchful stand, come the days of gentle warming, longer light on softer land. Gone are meaner, darker days, when in winter's bitter lair, sheep do blossom woolly capes to shield them from the icy air. Now the shearer comes around to shave away their curly coats and take the greasy wool to town for use by nimble Ulster folk. Okay, now here's the refrain. This is what the author was telling us. This is going to give us a really good mind picture of what the shearer does. Shear the sheep with gentle strokes to rid them of their winter coats. Side to back and tail to head, shave the wool which must be shed, and save the shell which has been shorn, for we who were not woolly born. The spinner keeps a steady beat upon the treadle with her feet, as though her nimble finger slides the greasy wool which she must glide into the soft and steady strands for use by other nimble hands. And so it goes, and so it comes, the spinner's work is never done. Look, here's wool that she's already spun, and here's a sheep looking at her. And she's thinking, oh, as soon as he gets sheared, that's going to be my job too. The shearer keeps her well supplied with woolly coats the sheep provide, which must be washed and must be carded well before the spinning's started. That's someone carding wool, brushing it out. After which the skeins are weighed and hung aloft to set them straight. And so it goes, and so it comes. There's always wool which must be spun. And here's the spinner refrain. Round and round the wheel is whirling, up and down the treadle's churning, pulling, plying, twisting, turning, whistling spokes of spindle swirling. Spinners work from sun to sun to spin the wool which must be spun. In Donegal, we weave the wool with warp and weft upon the loom. This big machine right here is called a loom. So they're using the spun wool, and now they're going to be weaving from it. The shuttle flies and colors bloom in blues and greens of stormy seas against a sky of weathered gray and muted hues of heathered heaths, which climb the hills of Derry Bay. That's what an Irish countryside looks like. Doesn't that look like a beautiful place to live? Put the shuttle through the warp, beat the weft, push the pedal. Put the shuttle through the warp, beat the weft, turn the heddle. Now knitting is better because you are able to knit while you natter and chat while you cable. While weavers are loners and spinners keep quiet, two knitters together can make quite a riot. And several can gather together and blather while outfitting sweaters that outfit the weather. Which might be the reason that in every season, as rain fills the sky, Irish wit remains dry. Knitters chat and knit, chat and knit, chat and knit and natter. Knitters chat and slip, chat and knit, chat and purl.
Awesome. So wasn't that such a cool book? I really liked that because I didn't even know all the process that went into making clothes from the sheep's wool. There's a lot of steps, a lot of people are involved. Huh? It's pretty cool. So today, like I said, we're going to be making our very own Irish sheep. And in Ireland, sheep are called cuiraw. Can you say cuiraw? So we're making Irish cuiraw. This is a sheep. All right, and then we're actually going to review some of the elements of art that we're going to be using for this project. So our big one, I can touch all over this. It's like fluffy and like makes noise and stuff. It's raised off the paper, see? What would that be called? Yes, that would be texture because I can touch it. It looks like different. What's another element that we could use? Yes, shape. We got a lot of shapes going on here. We have a big circle for our sheep. We have an oval here. We have two rounded triangles. We got some ovals for their feet and little rectangles for his legs. Perfect. And another one we're going to be using, you may not remember this one, but we're going to use value, specifically contrast, because we have our black for his face and his legs and his other body parts, and we're going to use white for his wool. So very black and white, we're using contrast, okay? So value. Perfect. Okay, class, so I'm going to show you very quickly just the basic steps of how we're going to make our sheep, and then we're going to do it together as a class after I'm done showing you. So do not touch your materials. I'm just showing you this right now, okay? So first for our materials, you're going to need a paper plate. You're going to need 2 pieces of white construction paper, a piece of black construction paper, a Sharpie marker or a black marker, a white colored pencil or crayon, doesn't matter which, your scissors, and some glue, okay? I'm going to actually be using this silver marker to draw on my black paper because it's going to show up a lot better, okay? So, to start out, we're actually going to be drawing his body, the black pieces for his body. So as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then his ears are separate pieces, 7, 8 pieces that we need to draw on the black piece of paper, okay? We're gonna start with that. So we're gonna be using some basic shapes to make our sheep. We're gonna start out with a oval, a pretty good sized oval. We don't want his head to be too tiny, we wanna be able to see it. So on the side of your paper here, we're going to do a good sized oval. Perfect. And then 3 kind of either like half circles or like rounded triangles, however you want to call those. And make these 2 about the same size. These are his ears, and then you have 1 more for his tail. Perfect. Right? And then for his legs, we need to draw 4 legs. So that's basically 2 lines. And then his little sheep foot comes up like this, kind of like an oval, but you don't connect it. So you just connect the oval to the rectangle. You're gonna do 4 of those, okay? And then that will basically be your sheep's body, and then we'll cut all of that out, right? So that's step 1. Step 2 is going to be drawing his eyes. So you'll be using a pencil, but to show you, I have my marker here. Pencil, or you can just cut them freehand, but about the size of a quarter. You're gonna want 2 eyes for him. 1, 2, right? So about 2 sizes of quarters, and we'll cut those out, and those will be his eyes. So that's the second step. Normally we would probably use cotton balls, but since we don't have those right now, this white paper will work just fine. So when you're gonna do is you're gonna make the fluff for your sheep. And so basically what you're gonna do is the fun part. You're gonna tear this into lots of different pieces. So this is kind of a big piece. You might want to cut this, rip that in like half, right? So then your pieces should be about maybe like this size, fit on the palm of your hand maybe. If you make them too tiny like this, I don't want to see this, okay? This is too tiny for our sheep. We're trying to crumple them up and make him look like he has fur. And so if you do that, if you make them too tiny, you won't be able to see the fur of his little sheep body. So we want to be able to see his fur. Okay, so when you cut them up, you're going to be making, when you rip them up, you're going to be making them look kind of like this, and then we're going to crumple them, not too tight, so it's just kind of crumpled up, so that you have a flat piece side here that you can glue down. You're going to need a lot of glue for this craft. I apologize. You're really going to have to smash it in there when we make our sheep too, okay, so keep that in mind. So once you have all of this piece of paper ripped up and crumpled up, you'll have your fluff. And we have 2 pieces of paper. You can use this one that you're drawing the eyes on as well if you need it. So we're going to use 1 piece first, and then if you need more fluff for your sheep, you can rip up this paper as well. But we're just going to start with 1 for right now so we don't waste paper, okay? So you're going to have all of that. And then with our paper plate, when we glue, we're going to glue our black pieces first, okay? So these pieces over here that you drew for your sheep, these are gonna go on first, then you're going to put on your fluff, okay? So you see how on my sheep here, we have the black pieces underneath, and some of the fluff actually goes over him. That's okay, but we wanna make sure we get these pieces on first so that we have enough room for them, then we can make him all fluffy, woolly like a sheep looks, okay? Perfect. So when we glue our sheep, we're actually going to only do it a little section of a time. So we're going to pretend his head and his legs and everything are on here first. Black pieces first, then white. So what you're going to do is a little bit at a time. You're going to put a good amount of glue, otherwise he will not stick. Do you see how much glue I put there? I know we always say dot, dot, not a lot, but this time you kind of need a little bit more, otherwise he's not going to stick. And then you're going to squish it down as hard as you can, your little crumpled piece, right? And then you do your second piece here. Good amount of glue. Here's another crumpled up piece here. And you go right on him. Perfect. And then in the end, when you do that, all of your wool, he's going to look like this. And this will be your sheep. Okay, class, so before we put our sheep together, we're going to go over some of our important instructions one more time so we all are on the same page, okay? So first, before we make our sheep, what are some of the elements of art that we will be using? Can someone give me one element of art? That's right, texture. Texture is a really big part of this sheep. How about another one? Shape. Yes, we're going to be using lots of different shapes to make the body of our sheep. And then what's one more thing? It's kind of the hard one. Value, right, and specifically contrast. So we're going to be using black and white on our sheep. There's no color in this art project. Perfect. Okay, and then which part of our sheep gets glued first? The black part or the white part? That's right, the black part is going to be glued onto our paper plate first. We're going to be doing all his body parts and then adding his wool. Okay, perfect, class. So now we are ready to do it all together. So what I'm going to need you to do is grab your black piece of paper and your white colored pencil or crayon, and we're going to be starting out with our sheep. Perfect. So follow along with me. We're making this together. I'm going to use my marker so you all can see. Okay. So first we're going to start out. We're going to make our sheep body. We're going to need a good sized oval over here. Perfect. We're going to need his ears. Kind of like rounded triangles, about the same size. And then one more for his tail. You can make it a little smaller, a little bigger, whatever you want to do, it's your sheep. And then we're going to do our legs. So remember, kind of like a rectangle with the oval on the bottom, and we'll need 4 of these. We can draw them one after the other. And all of this should be able to fit on one piece of paper. You should only need one black piece of paper for this, because we don't want to waste the paper. And you can always make your legs shorter if you put them on the sheep, and you notice that this is too big. You can always trim off the top of your sheep, okay? Because you don't want his legs to be too terribly long. Perfect. So once we have all of that, we're going to cut him out. So go ahead and cut him out with me. Perfect. So now we are going to take our white piece of paper with the circles. So, sorry, I'm reusing this paper. So we're going to do 2 quarter-size circles for his little sheep eyes, just like me. I redrew them so you guys can draw them with me. And then we're going to cut those out so he has eyes. The first time I made this, I forgot to cut out eyes for him, and I put the whole sheep together, and I realized he didn't even have a face. So that's kind of important. We want our sheep to be able to see. You'll notice that my sheep doesn't really have a mouth. That's really not the biggest feature on him, but you can see his eyes. We're going to put that with the rest of his body. Perfect. All right, so now what we're going to do is the fun part. We get to rip up this piece of paper. And remember, these are not going to be too small pieces, but that's kind of big, so we'll rip that in half. We're going to rip up our whole paper. And it's more fun if they're different sizes. So some can be small, some can be big. It's going to make your sheep have some different kind of textures if you have different sizes of paper for him. That one might be too small, but we can always find a spot for that one. So our whole paper, this whole paper needs to be ripped up. The littler the pieces though, the more you're going to have to glue. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to make them too small, otherwise you're going to be gluing all day. And we don't really have time for that. And you don't really want to glue all day, do you? This is my favorite part of the project. You don't get to do this all the time. Perfect. Okay. And then you would crumple all of these up. You can do them one at a time. You can do it together. It doesn't really matter. You can even do this if you want to. Or you can do them one at a time. Doesn't matter. As long as you're giving texture to your sheep. That's our big word for today, is texture. There's a lot of texture going on with this art project today. Put all of that aside up here. Oh, we almost lost a tail. Okay, and then we're going to get our paper plate. So what do we glue first, boys and girls? That's right. We glue our black pieces first. Okay, so we're going to start with his head. That's the easiest part to start with. I know it looks kind of a mess, but believe me, we're going to have a sheep at the end. Okay, so I'm going to put glue on him. I'm going to glue him right about here. So a little bit might hang off the edge. That's totally okay. Kind of gives him like a 3D effect, like he's coming off of his little body, right? So we're going to do that. We're going to do his ears. I like to glue on the side that has the marker. You can glue right on your plate too, because it doesn't really matter. We're going to be covering that all up with our wool. So when you glue his ears, you can kind of lift up his head a little bit and slide it behind it, so he has an ear.
We're gonna do that with this one too. Lift up his head a little bit, side it behind. Oops, came out. There we go. His tail, I made his tail kind of tiny. You might want to make his tail a little bigger. He's not gonna show up very well with our wool. And then his tail is actually going to hang off the plate a little bit. And he's gonna go over here. See how I put his tail kind of hung off the plate? Perfect. We're gonna glue his eyes before we forget about them, like I did the first time. There's one eye. And you can glue your eyes however you want. I glue them touching each other, the little circles touching each other. It gives them kind of like a funny expression. I think it's kind of cute. Like that. See? So they're not perfect by any means, but I think he looks kind of fun that way. And then let's glue his legs on here. So I kind of made my legs a little long. I'm actually probably going to trim these. You can leave him long if you'd like to, but I think he needs to be a little shorter. And your hands are going to get kind of sticky, so I'm sorry if your paper starts sticking to your fingers. Or maybe you're just better at using glue than me, who knows? All right, perfect. So let's give him his legs. And you can let them hang off just a little bit, but with the legs, I found it was pretty easy to just line them up with the edge of the paper and press them on. So they kind of go around like this, like a rounded. And again, it doesn't matter if you get glue on the plate because it's all going to be covered up with our cotton, our wool. Perfect. There's our little sheep legs. And now we get to glue on all of his little fuzz. So remember what I said? We're going to start by doing a section at a time. So you can glue probably like this much, and make sure you put a lot of glue on there. That's very important. Otherwise, your pieces are not going to stick. So find like a good sized piece, and you're just going to want to press it on there. Okay, press it hard, and then let him dry. Same with this one here. Might even need more glue. Okay. So you're going to do that all over your paper. It's going to take you a little bit of time. Remember how I said that if you need more paper, you can always rip up your second sheet of white construction paper and crumple that up too, and that can go on your sheet. Okay, but do you see how this one, I didn't press it down hard enough? He's kind of like falling off. So you just need to make sure that you get a flat part of your crumpled paper onto your plate so that he sticks. Okay, and then once you have all of this done, you can draw his eyes on. So I'll walk around while you do the rest of this. I'm not going to do this with you because it's going to take some time, but this is how his eyes are supposed to look. You just give him two good sized dots in the middle of the white, just like that. And that's all of your sheep. So you're going to finish gluing and crumpling the paper and putting it on there. Remember, you're going to need quite a bit of glue, and you're going to need to press it down really good so that it stays on your sheep. Okay? Perfect. And then when you're all done, your sheep should look like mine. So go ahead and get started on that, boys and girls. You're going to keep gluing your sheep.
Super awesome job, class. I can see that everybody is about done with their sheep, which is amazing. Next, we're going to take our index card. You're going to write his name, and I want 3 sentences about what you learned about Ireland, about sheep in Ireland, or even about like the elements of art we talked about, texture, value, or shape. So any of those work really well. And so they've all finished their index card. And then we're going to, everybody stand up, push in your chairs, and we're going to hold our sheep nice and high. Some of us might have fluff falling off. We can glue that on later. And we're going to hold our sheep nice and high so we can show all of our classmates about our sheep. And I'll call on a couple people, and you can tell me what you wrote down on your index card. And something I forgot to mention earlier, it totally slipped my mind. The reason why I think this craft is pretty cool is my ancestors are actually from Ireland. I think my great-great-grandfather came to America from Ireland. So it was really cool for me to learn about the sheep in Ireland and some of their culture. So I hope you guys enjoyed this too. Thanks for making your sheep with me. Good job, everybody.